You know the person everyone relies on? The one who stays calm when the room goes tense, who answers the late-night call, who keeps their voice steady while everyone else is falling apart. They handle the crisis, pay the bill, hold the family together, finish the work, say it is fine, and somehow keep moving. Then one night, weeks later, they are alone in the kitchen and a spoon falls on the floor, or the internet stops working, or somebody sends a short, cold text, and suddenly they break in a way that seems completely out of proportion. And that is the part people misunderstand. You think emotional strength means nothing gets to you. You think the strongest person in the room is the one who feels less, reacts less, needs less, and never lets the pressure show. But real emotional overload does not always look dramatic in the moment. Sometimes it looks efficient. Sometimes it looks responsible. Sometimes it looks like the person who keeps functioning so well that nobody notices they have been drowning in silence. Here's the thing. A lot of people who seem emotionally strong are not calm because life feels light to them. They're calm because they learned very early that panic was not useful, that tears did not stop the damage, and that somebody had to stay stable. So they became the container. They became the one who absorbs the shock, organizes the mess, and swallows the reaction fast enough that everyone else can keep breathing. And when you do that long enough, your nervous system starts treating self-control like survival. Your nervous system is the part of you that constantly scans for danger and decides whether you can relax or need to stay alert. If life taught you that falling apart was unsafe, embarrassing, punished, or simply not an option, then your body learns one harsh rule: hold it together now, feel it later. That is why the breakdown often comes at the wrong time, not during the emergency, not during the breakup, not while the family needs you to be the reasonable one. It comes when the door finally closes, when the dishes are done, when the performance of being okay is no longer urgently required. The danger passes, and only then does the body ask the question it postponed. Now can we deal with what this actually cost? But there's more going on than delayed emotion. What looks like strength from the outside is often built on chronic emotional postponement, and postponement is not the same as processing. Processing means the feeling moves through you and gets understood. Postponement means the feeling gets pushed into storage while you keep walking around acting like the house is not full of smoke. That storage fills in strange ways. It fills with the argument you handled too calmly, the grief you never had time to sit with, the humiliation you laughed off, the fear you buried because somebody else needed your steadiness more than you needed relief. None of those moments disappear just because you stayed functional. They stay in the system as unfinished emotional business, and unfinished emotion has a way of waiting in the dark until life finally gets quiet enough for it to step forward. That is why tiny things can suddenly hit with terrifying force. The trigger is small, but it lands on top of a mountain that was already there. A forgotten reply is not just a forgotten reply. It lands on old exhaustion, old invisibility, old resentment, old grief, old responsibility, old fear of being unsupported. The spilled coffee is not just coffee. It's the final grain of weight on a nervous system that has been carrying too much in silence for too long. Here's where it gets interesting. The people who do this are often admired for their maturity. They are called strong, grounded, resilient, dependable. And some of that is real. They often are incredibly capable. But the deeper reason is this: their control does not always come from peace. Sometimes it comes from hypervigilance, which means the system is always half ready, half scanning, half braced for impact. That kind of person notices everything: tone shifts, mood changes, practical risks, social tension, hidden conflict. They become very good at preventing emotional disaster before it starts, and the world calls that strength. But inside, it often feels like never fully resting. The body is efficient, but it is not safe. It is calm in the way a person is calm when they have learned that one wrong move could cost too much. And if that pattern lasts long enough, it starts turning into identity. You stop seeing your self-control as something you do and start seeing it as who you are. You become the stable one, the easy one, the one who can handle it. And this is where it stops being simple, because the role starts rewarding you while quietly draining you. People trust you more, lean on you more, expect more from you, and slowly your ability to carry weight becomes the reason more weight keeps arriving. Then one subtle happens. Need begins to feel shameful. Rest begins to feel undeserved. Softness begins to feel dangerous. You don't just suppress emotion, you start editing yourself before the feeling even fully forms. You minimize what hurts, translate pain into productivity, and call deep exhaustion by smaller names so you don't have to face how much this has been costing you. Then comes the private collapse. Sometimes it looks like crying over something absurdly small. Sometimes it looks like rage over a minor inconvenience. Sometimes it looks like numbness, insomnia, headaches, gut problems, a chest that never fully unclenches. You say you're fine, but your body starts speaking the truth your mouth has been editing for years. And here's what nobody talks about. The breakdown is not always weakness. Sometimes it's honesty breaking through force. There's also a darker layer here. People who look emotionally strong are often the least likely to be checked on properly. Others assume they can handle it. Others assume they will speak up if it gets bad. Others assume the calm face means the inside is stable. So the strong one becomes emotionally abandoned in plain sight, and that invisibility changes a person. It can create resentment that feels ugly even when it makes perfect sense. You start wondering why other people get comfort the moment they crack, while you only get admiration for how long you can endure. You start feeling guilty for wanting care because you're so used to being the one who provides it. And over time, a painful split appears. Public self becomes useful and respected. Private self becomes tired, unheld, and dangerously full. That's why the small trigger later can feel almost humiliating. You think, why am I crying over this? Why am I shaking over something so stupid? But the answer is often painfully simple. The big thing activated your survival self. The small thing arrived when survival finally loosened its grip. It was never about that one moment alone. It was about everything that had to wait behind it. There's research around stress accumulation and allostatic load, which is just a technical way of saying that your body keeps paying for repeated adaptation. Every time you override exhaustion, swallow fear, mute anger, or force yourself into control, the system absorbs a cost. You might not feel the full bill immediately, but the cost still exists. And after enough strain, the next little stressor doesn't act alone. It pulls the alarm on everything that was already overdue. But then comes the part that matters most. Not every private breakdown means damage in the same way. Sometimes it means you're finally becoming reachable to yourself. There's a painful version of this where you collapse, shame yourself, clean it up, and go right back into over-control. But there's also a healthier version, where the breakdown becomes information. It shows you where you have been too hard, too alone, too useful, and too composed for too long. Because emotional strength is not the ability to never crack. It's the ability to stay connected to yourself while carrying hard things. It's knowing when to stay steady and when to stop pretending. It's being able to help others without turning your own needs into background noise so faint that you only hear them once they're screaming. That's real strength. Not silence at any cost, but honesty before the cost becomes unbearable. So if this is you, the tears over the small thing don't mean you're weak. The shutdown doesn't mean you failed. The sudden flood doesn't mean you're unstable. It may mean your system has finally reached the point where it can no longer confuse suppression with safety. It may mean the part of you that has been performing strength is exhausted, and the part of you that wants care is done waiting politely in the dark. You are not broken because small things undo you in private. You are not dramatic because the flood comes late. You are not secretly weak because your strongest self eventually runs out of room. You may simply be someone whose survival became so polished that people mistook adaptation for ease. And if that's true, then the answer is not to become harder, it's to become more truthful with yourself before your body is forced to tell the truth for you. Maybe that truth is that you're tired of being impressive. Maybe it's that you don't want to be admired for endurance anymore. Maybe what you actually need is more discipline, but more permission. Permission to be affected before you are destroyed. Permission to need support before you become unreachable. Permission to stop proving your strength by how much pain you can hide. And if this hits something deep in you, stay with this channel because the next video goes even further into the hidden patterns strong people build to survive and what it really takes to stop carrying your whole emotional life alone.